isn't that beautiful? Over there too.
Where'd the wood go?
It's in the safe.
Next to the Xerox machine.
Goes with the 80 sound effects of the new.
Those 7-Eleven Radio Shack door entry things.
That one would have been a long time. Yeah.
IT guys.
Now I gotta get all my tabs open. I can't remember if I used Google or Microsoft Edge.
Mayor, Elizabeth's sick tonight, so I will be playing the Google.
All right. Very good. I call the meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the June 2nd, 2025 study session of your Ashland City Council. Do we have anyone signed up for public forum?
So as a reminder, study session does not have public forum moving forward as it's not part of our agenda protocol. So the public can speak about items on the agenda during study session, so we'll have public forum at our business meetings. With that said, no one has signed up for any of our topics tonight.
Great. So we'll move on to the first agenda item, strategic communications.
All right, tonight, Brenda Cottle, our city's communication officer, is going to give us an overview of the city's communication strategy. She's going to touch on what we are currently doing and where the city plans to expand. If you can hold the questions until the end, we will have time for Q&A. And with that, Dorinda, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, but if you can get in close to that microphone or get it a little closer to you, that's better. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. I'm Dorinda Cottle, Communications Officer for the City of Ashland. And as Sabrina said, I'm here to talk about our strategic communications and provide information. And we want to highlight where we've been, where we are now, and where we want to be within the next year. So with our communication goals, when it comes to communicating, we are accurate. We feel like we're a trusted source for the citizens of Ashland. We're accessible. We have our key communication channels, which are various and include the city website, our social media platforms, our monthly newsletters, our monthly city manager reports, and of course, in-person presentations like public meetings and our more informal coffee and conversation gatherings. We are timely. We provide information in a timely manner, and we prioritize what we're communicating so that our community can be proactive and informed. We are also engaging. We take an interactive approach with our communications. We invite feedback through our online forums. We have our Curiosity Q&A feature on the website called Let Curiosity Be Your Guide, where people can ask a question that they're curious about and then read what other people are asking about. And of course, we have our in-person gatherings. Communications in the past and where we struggle to meet our goals. So for about 5 years, the city did not have a communications person. They didn't have a dedicated voice. The newsletter was on pause for about 2.5 years. The outdated website was about 20 years old. It was challenging to navigate. The search function didn't work, and it had become a bit unruly, and a lot of the information on the site was outdated. The city brand had lost its spark in addition to the other things. So where we are now with communications, where we're making progress. We're accurate. You now have a dedicated PIO or communications officer. We have website protocols in place, with the website being our main hub for information. And we have approximately 20 web posters throughout the city at various departments. And that includes our staff liaisons to commissions and committees. We are accessible. We have our new website, which we launched in May of 2024. In January of this year, we launched a full page ad each month in Sneak Preview. And we usually feature our priority topics in that Sneak Preview ad, 1 or 2 topics, depending on the depth of the topic. And then we take that information and we repurpose it. We roll it into a City Corner article in Ashland News. And we've been doing that for about a year and a half, and we try to be in there at least every month. We also have our social media. When I first came on board, we had Facebook, X, and YouTube. And since over the past year, we've added Instagram and Nextdoor. We are starting to do more with sandwich boards, taking advantage of our pilot sandwich board program. And recently, we had signage at the front of Lithia Park for the Historic Preservation Week. We've had sandwich board signage for our Better Prepared Wildfire series. And this week, we're going to have new signage for our utility billing office on Ashland Street, letting people know that they're open and what the hours are. And also this week, we're getting signage for the water treatment plant project. And all of these signs have QR codes that take the user to our website for more information. We are timely. We offer monthly communications in our newsletter and city manager report. We send out about 8 to 10 news releases per month, and we're in the local press probably 25 to 30 times per month. We now have website projects that focus on those priority communications. And residents can go to these pages. They can look at project details, action plans, timelines, background, cost, and they can provide feedback. Examples of these pages include the water treatment plant project page, our new ADU program, homeless services, and our Your Taxes at Work page, which highlights how we utilize food and beverage and our TLT dollars. We're engaging. We have our website curiosity feature, like I mentioned earlier, the Q&A. We have our coffee and conversation now, which is spring through fall, and that's a more less formal way for people to interact with elected officials and staff. We have our office hours for city council and for our city manager, and we've brought back town hall, and we have a new brand identity with our new tagline, Better Together. So communications in the future, where we want to be within the next year. In terms of accuracy, we feel like we're doing pretty well there, so we're going to keep our current protocols in place. With accessibility, we want to start doing more with videos, and we're looking at short videos for our social media channels, and looking at creating some internships with SOU to help with those videos and possibly with social media. And then for longer videos, we want to take advantage of our partnership with RVTV and the SOU Digital Media Center to help us create some of those longer features. We're also looking at a module that is part of our website with Civic Plus, and it's called CP Media. And it connects with our video broadcast, our public meeting broadcast. And it offers captioning, timestamping, and it has search capabilities within the video. And it's actually, it comes up right with the agenda, so it's super easy to use, and you can actually split your screen and be looking at the video and the agenda at the same time. We plan to go fully digital with the newsletter as of July 1. And our plan right now is to produce 2 newsletters per month instead of 1. And this will allow us to be more timely in our communications. Right now, we have to broadcast out several weeks. And I'm really looking forward to building a subscriber list. I've used different programs before, and the ability to build a subscriber list and actually build targeted lists is pretty effective. So it's something that I'm looking forward to doing. We're also going to be doing more with infographics. So looking at creating graphics that make complex information more digestible. And a good example of that is the water treatment plant project. And we have an infographic that was featured in our sneak preview ad and in the June newsletter, and it's also on the water treatment plant project page. We're also doing a little bit with regional outreach. In December, we started doing seasonal ads on the RVTD buses. And we have large-scale ads on 2 of their buses. The 2 ads are in English and Spanish with the message, "Do it all in Ashland," and it includes seasonal pictures. And the goal is to invite our Southern Oregon friends to Ashland. We're also plan to help promote Parks and Rec programs, in particular youth programs, and and promoting those programs within a 50-mile radius of Ashland. We're timely. We want to initiate welcome packets, which I know we've talked about for quite a while now, but we're looking at setting up a digital e-card that actually goes out to all of those new utility connects. It's my understanding that when we have somebody sign up for utilities, they automatically receive a confirmation email. So it'll be easy to put that e-card in that email, and then they can click on it and go to our website and look up things like how to subscribe to the newsletter, or how to recycle, or where do you plug in your electric car. So just different things about our community. We're also looking at creating a general communication calendar, which is really more internal. Currently, we have a priority topic spreadsheet, and we want to expand that to create a more dynamic document that functions as a calendar and is linked to our agendas or look ahead and can be utilized by our leadership staff. Okay, challenges. We're at capacity. We only have 1 dedicated staff person communicating. And so we're looking for feedback from council on how do we move forward. Do we take something away? Do we just stay at the status quo, or do we come up with some other ideas? Timing. Sometimes it's challenging if we're facing a deadline and we have to get information out to public and we don't have all of the details that we need. A good example is the water cost of service rate structure. We don't have the approved rate structure in place, but we needed to move forward with the water treatment plant communications, and we had 2 deadlines that we were trying to meet, one for the sneak preview and one for the June newsletter. And maybe that communication calendar will help a little bit more, and then sharing when decisions are delayed, sharing with the public. Relevance. We're still learning what matters most to the community, and this is another area where we're looking for feedback from the council. What are you hearing in the community? What do people want more information on? Where are they getting their information? Are there sources that we're missing? Maybe there's sources we're using that aren't helpful. Priority topics. So here is how we prioritize what we communicate. A good example is today with our little scare with the grass fire. So emergency messaging it always takes precedence over anything else. And then we make an effort to communicate decisions that affect people's lives, such as a change in fees or a large project like the water treatment plant. We also do a good job keeping up our city calendars so people know when we're holding a public meeting or we have a community event. Measuring success. How do we know if we're meeting our goals? So we're going to be looking at website analytics, looking at page views, popular pages, time spent on the website, key documents downloaded. Also looking at social media. What does the engagement look like? Is our follower growth expanding or is it stagnant? And then reviewing qualitative feedback to gauge how we're doing, what's working, what's not. And again, with that digital newsletter, I'm really excited about that because that'll be a way where we can track a little bit more. We can see when people open up the newsletter and we can see if they're clicking through to read more about what we have going on in the city. And then Counselor Bloom had reached out and asked me to add a little bit of information about our analytics. So this first slide is our website analytics. It's a snapshot of the month of May. We had 25,000 users. It's about 800 users per day. And I wanted to point out that we have 21,000 residents, so this indicates we're serving a regional audience and tourists. We have about 71 views for the month, which indicates people are exploring. They aren't just going to one page. Our top 5 pages are the home site, utility billing, parks, agendas and minutes, and civic alerts, which is our news releases. And I did generalize that a little bit, trying to show you kind of a snapshot of what the typical pages are. Right now, weed abatement was really high, but I didn't include that because it's not typically part of the top 5 pages. Common downloaded documents include the city newsletter, the senior center newsletter, and our parking map, downtown parking map. Common search terms are parks, utility billing, and parking. Time spent on the site averages about 3 minutes per session, and this indicates people they're reading the information, they're searching and completing tasks. Sessions average 1.59 per visitor, and that indicates that we have repeat visitors. So I think people are coming for real-time information, public service updates, a trusted source for news, and they're staying long enough to engage. Social media measuring success. We have multiple platforms. I only did a snapshot of Facebook. That's our most widely used platform. We have nearly 6,000 followers, which is up 2.3 thousand in the past 2 years. In May, we had approximately 35 posts. We had 73,000 views, so that's the number of time our content was displayed, and that averages about 2,000 per post. We reached 29,000 people, so that's unique reaches. And we're reaching beyond our citizens. We have about 25% of our followers are from Ashland, with about 20 from the surrounding communities. And from what I can gather, having about 40 to 60% of your followers actually from the city is about where other municipalities are. And I think that indicates that we do have a lot of people who are tourists following us. And then there's always people who maybe they have a connection to Ashland, maybe they used to live here or they have family here, and they like our town. Our content interactions were 600 on those 35 posts. So those reactions are likes, saves, comments, shares, and that equates to about 17 interactions per post. So it's not viral, but it's still healthy. We had 200 link clicks on those 35 posts. So 5 to 6 clicks per post, so people are taking action. And I can offer more stats, if you guys want to see more. Okay, and then measuring our success, so qualitative feedback. And looking at our feedback, we've received a lot of positive comments over the past year. People like our new website. They like the See, Click, Fix module where they can report issues like power outages or downed trees or potholes. They like our education series, like our Wildfire Better Prepared series. They also like the Ollie series. We have the Better Together series, which was dubbed as Civics 101. And we've had the Show Me the Money series. And we actually just received an award from the League of Oregon Cities for the Ollie series for their 2025 Good Governance Award, which recognizes cities for engaging with residents, engaging and educating residents. I'm just going to take a quick drink. So people also like events like the Spring Clean Day that we just had and the Green Debris Day with our partners at Recology. And I think that we should also be looking at event participation when we're measuring success. So looking at like our summer concerts in Lithia Park, and are those events growing? Is food and beverage growing? Is TLT growing? And with the qualitative feedback, sometimes we do hear negative comments, or people might experience frustration, for example, with registering for See-Click-Fix or using the UB portal. However, most of the time, we're able to talk the user through it, and there really isn't a problem. It's just new, and so they need some help. Whoops. I think I'm done with that slide, but I want to check really quick. And so I just wanted to ask council what feedback you're getting, what sort of qualitative feedback, good or bad. And that is the end of my presentation, so I'm ready for questions.
Great, thank you. Councillor Bloom.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dorinda. Yeah, I mean, it's been a noticeable difference in the last couple of years. I think the communications has gotten so much better, and a lot of that, I mean, almost all of it's probably attributable to you. So thank you. Thank you for getting me the stats too. And totally just Facebook, and I'm sure it's, you got to go through the other ones. And I do wonder how much, engagement we actually have on platforms like Twitter, who are kind of going in a different direction, I think. Earlier, you were talking about email lists and really compiling those email address. I'm curious, are we just doing that organically, or is there conversations about contracting out so that we can generate, a more expansive list of email addresses?
Yeah, we haven't had that conversation. It doesn't mean that we won't. My thought was organically. I can share with you that subscribers to our new website, we aren't really getting a lot. And it's not just the city of Ashland, it's Civic Plus sites in general. It's a problem for other municipalities as well. And I think that if we have a fully digital newsletter that we're pushing out with a software program like MailChimp or Constant Contact, then we can start building that list. I worked for many years with Parks and Rec before coming over to the city manager's office, and I utilized those platforms and was very successful building those subscriber lists and also building those targeted lists. And the success really showed when we would go out and we had a survey and we wanted feedback on something or wanted to let people know about some sort of special event. I had those buckets, those targeted lists. And that's what I want to do again. I want to build up those lists.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's brilliant, and it's certainly it's a weird double-edged sword in a way, right? Where it's more affordable for you to do that organically, but it's also more time-consuming. And so, how do we find that balance? But I'm sure you're fully capable of doing so.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Dorinda. And I just wanted to comment when you said about the sandwich boards. I have been in city council on my Thursdays and welcoming our constituents, and I'm sitting there and I'll see people staring at something. I'm thinking, what are they staring at? So I went outside and I saw they're reading the sandwich board. So yes, good job. That's totally working. But I was looking under the slide that you said challenges, and one of them was the capacity, and I believe earlier you had mentioned working with SOU students. And so I know that they have a wealth of information at SOU and great students, and to be able to intern and perhaps partner and use SOU students, I'm sure that Dr. Bailey would be all over that because he is about partnership. So it's right down the road. This is an opportunity that we haven't tapped into yet. And I think that would help the capacity and the timing when you look under challenges. So I just wanted to give that suggestion. And then I heard you mention the community calendar. And for a while, I believe Mayor Graham has wanted us to have a calendar, which I'm excited to be able to have a community calendar. But I believe you mentioned only internal things on that calendar. And then it says, the other slide, priority topics, community events. So when you say community events in we're only having a calendar that's internal. Can you explain that to me?
Oh, there you go.
Sorry. When I mention community events, I really mean city events. So it wouldn't be, I know that we're working on creating that calendar for events that aren't city events, and I can see us linking to that, but I was referring just to events that are actual city events.
Yes, because I was looking at the other slide and just looking at in 2 years, Facebook really hasn't moved in capacity of folks coming to the city's site. And so to have community events, you know, integrated in that, I think we'd get more attention on our website. And once you're there, I got you. Then you could see other things that are happening in Ashland. So that's just a suggestion.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Councillor Kaplan?
Thanks, Mayor. And thank you, Dorinda. This is really terrific. I've been, hoping for this sort of discussion of strategic communication for some time, and it's really gratifying to see, your work over the last couple of years and how far we've come. I think you start with a pretty clear-eyed view of, the deficiencies in the past, and I think we've come a really long way. So thank you to you and to all the people that are in the city that are really working with you on this. I've got a couple of comments and questions, I suppose. The first, I guess, has to do with your comment about capacity. Just one PIO, principal. What is it? Principal Information Officer. Public Information Officer. Okay, got it. Thanks. It strikes me that that's the essential challenge. I don't think of us as having one person. I think the challenge is making sure that we can mobilize your task and the city manager's task and the deputy city manager's task is to mobilize the people from across the organization. From each of the different departments on specific topics who are subject matter experts, and I know that you do that. So I do think that there's actually a lot more capacity there than maybe we're taking credit for. I think we also have an opportunity to use counselors and the mayor as strategic communications. You talk about the coffee and conversations. Obviously, we're all doing some of those things. Mm-hmm. I would ask the question, what can you do or what can the city do to help us to be better communicators in our role as counselors? We probably have to have a conversation about that. We all have different styles and different areas of where we may be more comfortable. I also think that developing more communications partnerships, you talked about SOU, and I think that's really important. But there are other organizations that have their own email lists, that have their own audiences, and we're going to reach many more people if we can partner with other organizations and take advantage of their ways of getting out. I think of the Ashland School District. I do think of SOU. I think of Ashland.news. Do we know anything about these audiences? OSF. Do we know anything about the audiences that they reach and how they may complement what we're getting? Because I think it is hard. I take Councilor Bloom's point. It's hard to grow our own lists, grow our own outreach by ourselves, but we can leapfrog ahead if we're actually working together with some of our community partners and take some of the burden off of you and city staff as well. So I think really the watchword should be partnerships with other organizations to really get those priority messages out. Both reactive messages, you talked about the wildfire this afternoon, making sure that we're getting whatever message we want to get out on that through many different channels, but also more importantly, I think the proactive messages, because there's two aspects of strategic communications. One is how to react to emergencies and need to know something, but then is how do we want people to learn about really topics that are important to our community and to the city. Timing, I think you talked a couple of times about the water treatment plant. I think we've done an okay job on that. I think we sort of caught up a little bit on that. I think we came out of the box pretty slowly and could have had better communication earlier on. But But I think that, that was a learning process, and I think that we did some really good work later on to catch up on that. I think that's a lesson that we can apply to other kinds of things. Obviously, you're applying it to the water treatment plant going forward, and I appreciate that. But, things like Pioneer Hall, the last communication we've really had about Pioneer Hall is pretty old, and, we thought that it was going to be open just last month. And now I rode my bike by there the other day, and I see it's all dug up, something under there, and there's some more work. It's clearly not going to be ready for some time, but there's something that's communicating. Now, Pioneer Hall and the community center are not projects that are like the water treatment plant in terms of big things, but there are things that are important to the community. They're a little bit about culturally, who we are as a community. So I think really focusing on those things too. They don't quite make your priority topics list, I think. I'm not sure how that sort of things fit in, but I think about, communications being part of every project plan. Every time there's a real special project, what is the communications approach? How are we going to keep people informed? How is the council going to be pressed into service about that? How are our other news outlets going to be, serving that need? And then I guess about the metrics, I guess it's hard for me to assess the metrics that you reported. I'd kind of like to see what some benchmarks are from other, cities. What are other cities doing? You have access, obviously, to Civic Plus, and I think you talked about that. I think that's one kind of benchmark. There may be other benchmarks of how other communities are doing. And I know that you're talking with other communities, particularly about website and things like that, about how to make it better. But there are other communication channels that other cities do pretty well, and maybe we can learn from them and also share some of our experience. So I think those are my main. I have a couple of just tiny little questions about the fully digital newsletter. I worry about. I'm mostly digital myself, and I think that's obviously the way of the future. But I worry about people that aren't digital and that really still do depend upon paper. And I appreciate the sneak preview, the full page that you're putting in the sneak preview now for people that don't go online, that they can read something there. I don't know if a newsletter means no more insert into a bill for people who still get their bill through the mail. I don't know how many people that is. But I guess I worry about leaving. You talk about accessibility as one of the principles, making sure that we're always going to be accessible. Maybe some other way to really reach out to folks that don't get their information digitally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a legitimate concern. And I think before we launched the sneak preview ad, we were thinking there's no way we're going to get rid of that printed newsletter. However, it is a cost. It isn't timely. And I think if you look at national stats for the people who aren't connected online, it's really low. I think it's 4 to 7%. And I think Ashland is probably more advanced than that. I think that it's probably a lower number for Ashland. But that doesn't mean that once we launch this digital newsletter that we won't look at how we're doing. If we get a lot of complaints, maybe we need to consider, do we go back to a printed newsletter? Or maybe we have a printed postcard, or I don't know what the answer would be, but my point is we would stop and talk about it and try to come up with another solution.
Can I follow up? So just point of just fact. Do you know how many people are getting their utility bills in the mail? Because that's an indicator of people who prefer to get their content in written form or in paper form versus doing it online. Do we know that? Because that's where the paper newsletter goes now, right?
I might need help from Mary Ann,
That's okay.
but
It doesn't need to be
I don't
right now.
remember that number.
I'm not looking for you to
okay.
supply it right now. I'm just thinking of that as a thought process as you cited that statistic about how many people don't really get online. Hi, Mary Ann.
I don't
mean
know
to
that
put you on
number off the top of my head, but we
No,
can
no.
certainly share that out tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm really thinking of it more as a thought experiment, just to really truth the insight that most people get their content online. I think that's obviously true, but I worry about those people that don't. And I think perhaps the utility bill in the mail might be a good indicator for those people that don't, look online and see content on ashland.news or anywhere else.
Counselor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. First and foremost, Dorinda, thank you. I just want to share the collective appreciation with all the hard work of you and staff. I think it's wonderful. It is night and day since we started this, and it's a lot of fun to see it. I appreciate all of Councilor Kaplan's comments, and I kind of want to still continue to pull on that the thread about metrics, because I'm not much of a social media user on purpose. I have no idea how many likes is good, right? But I do know how to measure things like communication and marketing in a private world, where you can just look at your revenue and say, is what we're doing working? That's not how we roll here in a municipal government, of course. But I think what I would be interested in would be I would put it back on you, and I would say, as a PIO, what do you feel is where we need to, what are our metrics? What are we going to track? What is a dashboard that we can look at? What are trend lines that you set targets, or with collaboration with city managers and whatever, so that when we come 6 months from now or a year from now, we can say we chose these things that we're going to work on. This is what it is as a benchmark, as Councilor Kaplan said. What do we think we want to shoot for? You choose the why behind that. We certainly have trust in you and staff, and then we can figure out if that's something that we want to continue to do and so forth. But that's personally what I would need, is to be able to have some sort of this is where we're at, this is where we're going, this is why. And then kind of a corollary to that would be, I would also rely on you to give us feedback as to, this is what you're just going to cross off the priority list. Because sometimes, and I'm very guilty of this myself, where I just take on too much, and then we're doing 60% of a bunch of stuff, as opposed to saying, these are the things that we are going to focus on. And council will certainly provide its input to that, but I think that I would certainly, personally, would rely on your professional opinion on what you don't think is worth spending energy on. I mean, just like utility bills, right? If we have X amount of paper utility bills, let's say, do we want to set a goal to reduce that by 10% or something, whatever that is? I don't know. And how would you go about doing that? And then we can look at it now and then 6 months from now and say, is that something that's reasonable? I think would be very valuable, at least to me. But thank you for all the good work.
Counselor Bloom?
Thank you, Mayor. Wow, I asked one question. Everybody's getting a few, so I'm gonna take a few here. So, yeah, I love all this. It's a great conversation, and I think that I've talked to Sabrina and mentioned how I really think that we need to kind of reach out to SOU, and how do we get those internships going, and understanding that it's difficult to have an intern if they don't have projects, right? Project base is like really what we want to do, and so I think one thing to consider is talking about this timing capacity issue is, how are we getting somebody like an intern that is kind of pre-developing formats, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's on Facebook or the website through infographics, so it's plug and play and you can rotate through those. That might help with the timing situation in terms of what you're able to do. Another thing I think would be really important in looking at is YouTube, and we've talked about videos, short form, long form, I think our meetings, but importantly too, and we've talked about this in the past, of making sure that all of our committees are recording on Zoom, so that those are then available to the public that want to tune in and watch them, and then creating synergy between those. So when you go to the website to look at something, there's a link to Facebook, or you're on Facebook, there's a link to the YouTube. And what it does psychologically is it builds a habit in viewers, so that they're thinking, oh, I'm not seeing something here, maybe I need to go to that other channel, right? That other venue to find something, and building that habit so that we've got a community that is engaging in all of our different platforms that we're using. I think that might be helpful, but yeah, I mean, I can't say enough how much I appreciate how far we've come, and certainly happy to, I don't want to belabor this here, but certainly happy to sit down and throw a bunch of ideas out, and you tell me how horrible they are, and we don't have to do them. But the more ideas we have on the table, I think that, we might come out with something that could be huge, and really be the gem that we're looking for in terms of that sweet spot for communications. So thank you again.
Great.
Can I
Counselor
add-
Hanson?
Yeah, thank you, Dorinda. I think communications have radically improved these last couple of years. I mean, like night and day. It seemed as though there was misinformation that had blossomed into full-blown conspiracy in beginning of 23, and it seems like you've done a good job, city's done a good job. I appreciate all the strides. I'd like to give my 2 cents into the priority topics here. Love the list. I would bump up community events to number 2 because I think although the change of fees and services are very, very important, I think just keeping us engaged beyond emergencies is our biggest opportunity here. When I go to the well-publicized city meetings, I see a lot of older people in the room. So I don't know how we get the message out to younger people in the community that these meetings are happening, that civic participation is important and fun and cool. Don't show pictures of me, but let's find fun pictures, to get people involved. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but we are doing a much better job, and I think that's an incredible opportunity. I'm a little concerned about the digital only of the newsletter. I'm one of those that still likes to get my bill in the mail. I like to see my solar offset and keep all that. I don't know why, I'm just a nerd that way. I take the newsletter, I put it on the counter, it stays there, it does its little migration over to the recycling bin, which takes about a week, and everybody seems to read it and pass it along. I'm sure I'll get used to it when it's not there, so I encourage you to pull the rug out from under me and see if I complain. I think that's a great strategy. We'll just see. But when the newsletter comes in via email currently, it oftentimes has a click or two to get through. And I would like to see that just delivered, packaged up in MailChimp or whatever your platform is. But oftentimes I don't do that second or third step. I look at the email, I read what's in it, which is oftentimes the headline. I appreciate that, but just a suggestion there. And other than that, I just encourage you to keep up the good work. And we're all looking for that master calendar, I think, that has all of the community events in there, so I can see what I don't know, right? What's happening in the community that's going on that's not in my social circle, whether it be the Mystery Fest or the Epic, music, whatever it is. I'd love to have those things in the master event calendar too. But dollars well spent for our city. More early. Oh, the other thing was early and often in communications, like with the park fees, for example. And just the fee increases in general and the park fee. I got a lot of communication from constituents thinking that this was just a real abrupt policy direction, when in fact, from a budgetary standpoint, it wasn't a big surprise to some of us. However, there's definitely an opportunity there for us to communicate about that particular kind of thing early and often. And that's my input there. Thank you.
Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add one more to Councillor Kaplan's list. I think should be easy access for us to get emails and information from, and that's Travel Ashland.
So I would just echo the kudos for the incredible strides we have made. I remember the days when we didn't have any sort of communication person, the years, in fact, that we didn't have that. And it was incredibly difficult to help the community engage with this council and with the city and help people understand what was happening and why was it happening a certain way and that sort of thing. So this is all fantastic, and people can find their way across in the website. The feedback that I'm getting is that it's just so much easier now to find out what's happening. My question is about the digital newsletter. When you say it's going to be fully digital, what does that mean entirely? Do you mean that it'll be the same format it's in now, but we're not doing any hard copy, or do you mean that we're changing the digital piece? Because I know right now it's almost impossible to read it on a phone, and it's got a traditional newsletter structure, which I know takes a lot of time to lay out. And then it's hard to read it. I find it, I have to put my reading glasses on when I pull it up on my computer. So can you just talk through a little bit more what the fully digital means?
Yes, that's a really good question. In addition to the savings for not having to print the newsletter, there's also my time laying it out. So I'm writing the content and then I'm actually doing the layout. And with the digital newsletter, I plan to use Constant Contact because I'm familiar with that. And I can basically just take my news release or whatever communication I've written, drop it in there, drop in a picture, and it'll go to the user and there won't be any clicks. You just open the email and it's all right there. And the analytics will tell me who opens their email, and it'll also send reminders. And it'll tell us which stories they're clicking on. What are they interested in? What are they reading about?
Yeah. So it sounds like it's kind of a similar process to the e-news that I send out.
It's exactly
kind of
like
look,
that.
yeah. And I've been playing with it over the last couple of years to see, and I get those analytics on the back end as well.
Yeah.
And what I will say is it has become so much easier for me to put my little e-news together because we are doing such a good job of getting information out. It's got visuals and the links are all right there. So then this would allow us then to hit that sweet spot. I guess this is the next question of being able to put out a newsletter after the agendas are posted for a meeting, but before the meeting happens.
Yes.
Right? So we would anticipate being able to do that because that is one of the things that I hear feedback on is that people say, oh, I didn't know that was happening. And if they have to proactively come to and monitor or sign up digitally to get that information, I think a lot of folks don't do that, and then they feel like they're surprised. And so are we able? So it sounds like that's what the calendaring sounds like for the twice a month type of a thing. That's fantastic. And can we tap into the utility billing piece? I know there were questions before about the rules around using emails for people who are getting it obviously for a utility bill. But what are we able to do that either by simply creating that list and having people opt out if they don't want the e-news, or can we at least send them an invitation to the e-news? A one-time message to invite them to attend, to sign on, because I think that getting that list to be robust is a really important part of this.
More than likely, we'll send an invitation in the utility billing email to sign up.
And then I know that sometimes when you have, say, new sign up, new utility billing customers, it's possible to indicate that when you're giving us your email for this, you're also opting, that part of the deal is you're getting your utility bill and you're getting your newsletter. So we could potentially do that so that going forward, they would just automatically be added and then they could opt out. Is that correct? Once we did the first
that's correct.
push.
And that's also the idea behind the digital welcome packet, right? So all of that is kind of coming at the new account anyways, person.
Yeah. Councilor Bloom.
Sorry, thank you. Just kind of, it came to me, two quick things. For a very, very small investment of a shockingly low price, you'd be surprised at how a company can pull every single email address of everybody that lives in Ashland. And it's a little scary, but that's the reality of today. The other thing that kind of came up when we were talking about formatting, and also to my earlier point too, about kind of content creation and getting that all set up in a format. My wife works in marketing, and her company pays for AI, and in 20 minutes she can spin up pretty much anything with Canva and using ChatGPT. And if that's something that you'd be willing to explore, I think it would help a lot with capacity. And obviously there's always fine tuning, but it's an incredible tool. And I mean, she contracting work with like Amazon and some big companies. And I think that if they're comfortable with the output of that, I think that we can be comfortable with it as well. So just another tool to save some time and resources for you.
And then in terms of the welcome packet, I'm also very excited to hear that the welcome packet is coming. Are we thinking that that's entirely digital?
I think so. I think so. I was talking with Bryn the other day, and we actually have around 3,200 new connects each year. And we aren't able to tease out who is moving across town versus who's actually moving into the community for the first time. So we'll need to send it to everybody, and I don't think it's cost prohibitive to, I think it's cost prohibitive to send out a letter, a snail mail. I think we should be doing it digitally to save money. And it sounds like everybody who signs up, they give an email and they receive a confirmation email that, hey, you're signed up for utilities now, and then we can include that little digital e-card.
And that might, and it would be good to test whether people open that and
Yes.
see the postcard, or if it needs to be maybe sent as a separate message. But I think it's a good place to start. And so then we would have a welcome packet maybe on our website in some fashion, and then that would just simply link them directly to the welcome packet. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. Councillor Hanson.
I have a question. Do we partner with Chamber of Commerce for that Welcome to Ashland packet? I don't remember getting one, but it's been a number of years since I established my last account.
I don't think we've ever gotten one.
No, the chamber doesn't do that. Say they have the living and doing business guide, which we link to, but this would
Okay.
be a bit separate.
Yeah, I was just curious what kind of cross-pollination we had there. But we do. It sounds like the welcome packet includes the welcome to
Yeah, we
living
can
and
include
doing
that.
business in Ashland. Okay,
And then
cool.
additional info.
All right,
from
good to
us.
know. Thanks.
Right. So in terms of feedback from the council, we've heard a lot of suggestions up here, but we don't have a set of feedback that's from the entirety of the council. It sound when I did see some discussion of metrics, I saw quite a few heads nodding in terms of at least some simple metrics that we could be able to gauge our progress on, that staff would develop. So I'm just checking to see if that's accurate, if there's interest in the staff developing a set of metrics, bringing those back to us, and then being able to manage from there. Sabrina?
Yeah, so I would suggest we use our 5 up and 5 down. So those are the cities most like us in population, see what they're doing, and if they have benchmarks that we want to kind of track. There may be some universal kind of PIO media benchmarks that we want to align with.
Yeah, to create some benchmarks, and then we can see how we're doing against those.
Yep.
Does that sound right?
Over
Yeah.
time, too.
Yes,
Yeah, that's-
to watch it over time.
Yeah,
Councillor
that's-
Duquesne?
That was my question, over time, and when would that come back? So if that's my question. What does it look like in 6 months, or having the metrics is great, but being able to have a time when it comes back, I think is important. So do
So
we know
before
what
we
that
move
would
on to
look
that,
like?
yeah, let's talk quickly about the timing, because we have metrics questions for other programmatic elements. And so what would be an appropriate time would be towards the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to do this whole strategic planning process. There's going to be performance measures coming out of that for multiple departments. And so I think we just kind of continue to work towards that, but it's part of a bigger picture. So I don't want to set a date for that just yet, because we have a bigger process to do.
Councillor Kaplan?
Yeah, I just want to be careful that we don't find ourselves in metrics hell and overload of all kinds of things. We have a clear idea of, well, what are we going to do with the metrics that we're collecting? There's lots of metrics we could collect, and I think the ones that are really going to inform decisions on changes of approach or other ways to do what we're doing. So just to exercise a little bit of caution on our enthusiasm for tracking things.
Yeah, I think we're looking for simple metrics that will tell the most important story of our communications. Councillor Bloom?
Yeah, I would say that I'm actually not even that concerned or interested in terms of timeline to get these metrics back, because what we're talking about in terms of communication is like, okay, we're doing this is a baseline, we know what we're benchmarking off of, but every time you implement a new strategy, right, whether it's YouTube or whether it's some different way of doing something, all of a sudden you're restarting that calendar, right? So, I think really, if we're talking time, we're talking about a couple of years, because I imagine these are going to get rolled out every few months, 4 months, and so putting a timeline on it for 6 months, I think, isn't going to give us much to look at.
Okay.
No, but maybe having an idea of what the metrics are within 6 months would be helpful.
Yeah, we can provide a memo of what we're
Yeah.
going to be looking at, and then as we add new or any kind of guidance we find while looking for those benchmarks, we'll share that with council.
Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you, because, and I understand what you're saying, Councilor Bloom, but communication is important. This part of what is happening in our community is important. In 2 more years, we could be off the chart, but right now, I think it's important to know this is where we're going, and we're doing it, we're spending our time in the right direction, so.
Right. The other topic that came up that I saw significant heads nodding around was the question around the printed newsletter and figuring out how to track that to see how many people really rely on that, and is there a need to continue the printed newsletter for some number of community members? So just figuring out how do we make sure that we don't leave folks behind who are not digital? You're not really interested in that, but let's go around with just head nods to see if that's a response from council.
Yeah, again and again, to Councilor Kaplan's point, I'm not interested in metrics hell either, but I just want to make sure something like that is useful to the community somehow.
There's interest in keeping an eye on the folks who have been receiving, figuring out, is there a way for us to tell whether that needs to carry forward? Yes. Okay.
So
go
we'll
ahead.
take a look at how many people get their utility bill mailed to them, and we'll do an assessment from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Could even include in one of those bills the question: Would you like to get would you like to receive your email, your newsletter by email? Because we're thinking of discontinuing, and see what reaction you get.
I think if I could too, I think that it's
Yes.
worth noting that as we roll out new strategies and we do have that cross-pollination between different platforms that we're using, that you'll find more and more people leaning towards the digital because it'll be more front and center. And so the more that we can boost Facebook and promote and get those things top of mind, I think we'll find a quick transition to the digital. And so I'm just concerned about costs in terms of the snail mail.
Councillor Hanson.
Dorinda, I just had a quick question about budget. Do we have a budget for advertising for our brand and for like boosting messages on Facebook or any other medium to get more advertising-based messaging out rather than just organic? Do we have a budget for that? Because I'm curious, if we have 6,000 followers on our website now, we could set a goal to have, 20,000 followers next year. And if we had a little bit of spend there, you could boost some of these messages and hopefully get more people to follow us.
Mm-hmm. So we do have an advertising budget. I would need help with Sabrina on how much that is.
It's fairly small, and that's the discussion of the newsletter, is that, we do not have money in the next biennium for a snail mail newsletter. And this is one of the areas that we've reduced in the city manager's office to meet the budget requirements. And so that is why we are transitioning to the digital, because it is a growing expense with very little return. And so we will continue to transition to digital things. That doesn't mean that every once in a while we're going to not send out a postcard or something if there's something big. But the website is our main repository for information. All of our social media, everything points to the website for that reason, for records retention as well. So that is the direction the city is going.
Well, I would just want to put that out there that we might want to track and allocate some small dollars, because those boosted posts are very inexpensive and they're really good at getting followers, which then might lead to a bigger base, and then that transition might be easier, save some of our digital spend for that, or take some of what we would have spent on print and put it to that. And I think that might be a fun thing to look at another 6-12 months down the road, is those metrics, to see how many people are now following us.
Okay. So we do want to move on to the next agenda item, but Councillor Duquesne, you had something?
Yeah, I saw a lot of info about Facebook. Facebook is great, but we want to reach younger people, and that's Instagram. So, did I see Instagram on there or no? I did? Okay.
Yes, so-
Yeah, because Instagram is where I'm thinking we definitely want to go there, because we do want to engage everybody, so thank you.
Yes, and we are on Instagram as of March of '24, and I think we have 1,000 165 followers, something like that. So it's growing.
Great.
I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but youth do not follow Instagram. But we will continue to work at our social media game.
Thank you again so much, Dorinda, and fantastic work. We're looking forward to seeing the next steps that you've laid out for the year, and just this is such a night and day difference from where we were. Thank you. All right, so we move on now to the AFN pilot program update.
So tonight, Chad Sabatka, our AFN manager, and Marianne Berry, the director, is going to give us an overview of the AFN pilot project that council approved this biennium. They are requesting council direction on continued expansion of this program. So if you can hold questions until the end of their presentation, since we do have an additional item after this to discuss. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Mary Ann Berry, as I was already introduced, and of course, I'm going to just pass the baton over to Chad. I'm just the slide transitioner.
Good evening. My name is Chad Sabatka, and I'm the operations manager for the Ashland Fiber Network. Tonight, I will be presenting an update to our PON pilot project. PON stands for Passive Optical Network. It is faster and more reliable than traditional cable modem internet service and is considered future-proof, meaning it can be quickly and easily upgraded to support even faster speeds in the future. As the only 100% locally owned broadband network in Ashland, AFN has a responsibility to bring value to the community by providing internet service that is reliable, cost-competitive, and inclusive. We also have the responsibility to ensure that the technology powering AFN remains up to date, enabling us to provide our customers with the fastest internet connection possible, which is the goal of the PON pilot project. With speeds up to 2.5 gigabits per second, our fiber internet services are fast. Our next goal was to pass 500 homes with fiber per year and to connect at least 200 customers in the first year. We named the first section of town to receive the fiber upgrade the SOU area. This area required the installation of nearly 13,000 feet of fiber and more than 80 fiber splices. This was also a test for AFN staff. While we have completed large fiber construction projects before, this was the first to require such a significant number of fiber splices within a short time frame. Work began in July 2023 when the project was approved and funds were released. Our first customer was connected 14 months later, in September 2024. Several key milestones were achieved between these two dates, including vendor selection, council approval of the contract, and the issuance of an RFQ for fiber construction. We experienced several delays during this project. Our council presentation for contract approval was postponed from October 2023 to January 2024. In March 2024, we sent our fiber construction request for quote to 14 companies. 4 months later, a local company finally responded. Initially, our plan was to hire a second company to splice the fiber once construction was completed, with cost estimates around $25,000. However, in late October 2024, we decided to hire a temporary employee instead. This fourth field technician has been pivotal in helping us meet our project goals. Our original budget for this project was $1 million. We anticipated spending $100,000 on contractors, $300,000 on outside plant materials, and $600,000 on hardware and services, primarily with Calix. We are over halfway through this project and are on track with cost management. We have spent just under $50,000 on contractors, under $65,000 for outside plant material, and just over $500,000 for hardware and services. Our largest cost savings came from outside plant materials. By carefully researching and planning the equipment needed for the fiber deployment, we were able to achieve significant savings. Construction and splicing in the first pond area are 100% complete, and we are nearing the completion of converting all existing cable modem customers to fiber. Industry estimates for the cost per home passed range from $700 to $1,500. This encompasses all the necessary components for running fiber along utility poles, including the fiber itself, the hardware, and other equipment mounted on the poles. AFN achieved this at a significantly lower cost of $193 per home. Industry estimates for the cost per home connected range from $1,000 to $2,000 or more. This includes all expenses related to connecting a home to the internet, such as fiber installation and the necessary equipment from the utility pole to the customer's router. AFN achieved this connection cost at a range of $427 to $466 per home. The cost to overlash fiber against our existing cable plant was $6.20 per foot, compared to industry estimates ranging from $8 to $12 per foot. Since the start of the project in the SOU area, we have achieved a 14% increase in our customer count, bringing us to 50% market share. Over the same period, we experienced a 5% increase in customers across our entire network, resulting in an overall market share of 36%. Our average revenue per user, or ARPU, is $48.60, compared to nearly $57 for our cable modem customers. The take rate for our internet assistance plan in the SOU area is 20%, compared to 3% across our entire customer base. The average household income in the SOU area is lower than in other areas of the city. One of AFN's key goals is to increase digital equity and inclusion, so we consider this a success. In the second pond pilot area along Granite Street, fiber has been overlashed to our existing plant, and 70% of the fiber has been spliced. Our first customer was connected in May 2025. 45% of our customers signed up for our 500 megabit symmetrical plan, 32% for our 1 gig down and 500 megabit upload plan, 1% for our 1 gigabit symmetrical plan, and 21% for our internet assistance plan. The chart on the right compares these service plans with those chosen by our cable modem customers. Due to the small sample size and limited deployment of fiber, this is not indicative of what we can expect with a citywide fiber rollout. Starting in July, we will offer a discounted rate of $70 per month for the ultimate fiber plan, with the goal of increasing adoption and making symmetrical gigabit more affordable. This was our third pond fiber project, and by far the largest. We learned many valuable lessons throughout this process. Historically, AFN has operated with 3 field technicians, which, under normal conditions, has been sufficient. Although we connected our first customer in this SOU area in September 2024, we weren't able to begin connecting customers en masse until January 2025. Since the start of the year, with 4 field techs, we were able to finish all splicing in the SOU area, which involved 45 splice cases, finish splicing in the Beach Creek subdivision, run fiber and begin splicing for the Magnolia housing development, complete splicing the Midtown Lofts complex, which required over 100 splices, splice fiber along Washington and Jefferson streets, run and splice fiber in the Railroad District along C Street between 3rd and 8th, install fiber and equipment in downtown Ashland to connect 2 additional city blocks to gigabit service, splice 70% of the drop cases along Granite Street, connect 25% of the Ashlander apartment buildings to gigabit service, and maintain our existing cable modem plant. None of this would have been possible without the addition of the 4th field technician. Furthermore, we did not need to reschedule any appointments due to illness, vacations, or other unforeseen events. Some customers were difficult to reach and required multiple phone calls and door hangers. One customer refused to believe we were increasing their speed and reliability at no additional charge. We also faced increased competition in the SOU area. As we began running fiber, another provider started laying fiber alongside us. Despite the competitive landscape, our market share in the area continues to grow. Although our average market share hovers around 35% plant-wide, we saw a 14% increase in customer count in the SOU area, bringing our total market share to 50%. For our outside plant materials, we evaluated numerous brands and options, a process that took several months. This careful planning paid off, allowing us to significantly reduce costs compared to initial estimates. We also anticipated long lead times for some items, and again, our preparation prevented delays. Deploying fiber is a slow process. Every customer requires a new line run from the utility pole to their house, which is time-consuming. Initially, we scheduled one technician per install. We quickly learned it was more efficient to schedule 2 technicians to pre-run drops for multiple customers 1 to 2 days per week. Our only advertising in the SOU area consisted of door hangers and word of mouth, which still resulted in a 14% increase in our customer accounts. A similar percent increase across our entire service area would result in a net gain of 720 customers for a grand total of 5,000 customers. With continued network upgrades and targeted marketing, we believe this is an achievable goal for the next biennium. And AFN staff has been outstanding. We have accomplished so much since the start of the year, and this success is the result of a collective team effort. The staff deserves all of the credit for our achievements. Our pricing is competitive with other providers in the area. Hunter offers lifetime pricing on their most expensive service plan and a $10 per month auto-pay discount. Quantum Fiber, a subsidiary of CenturyLink, has begun deploying fiber throughout Ashland. They offer lifetime pricing, but they require paying by bank account to receive the $5 per month discounts. Spectrum provides significant discounts for the first year of service. They operate a DOCSIS 3.1 network with a mid-split, which limits their upload speeds. AFN offers lifetime pricing with no contracts. One of the features our customers appreciate most is that their internet bill is consolidated with other city utilities. At the start of the biennium, we will be offering a discount on our 1 gig symmetrical plan. Our basic plan is for those who qualify for any government program, such as the Ashland Low Income Energy Assistance Program or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Additionally, we are the only 100% local provider in the area. We have 4 main goals for the next biennium: provide symmetrical gigabit service to over 60% of Ashland, increase our customer count to 5,000 total customers, adjust our rates to ensure affordability and competition, and continue to offer our Internet Assistance Program for those in need. Our budget aligns with these ambitious goals. The largest allocation is for the DOCSIS 3.1 upgrade, which will provide symmetrical gigabit service to 53% of Ashland. Combined with our existing network upgrades, over 60% of Ashland will have access to symmetrical gigabit service. By leveraging our existing cable infrastructure, we can quickly deploy gigabit speeds. This will also enable us to connect customers much faster than with fiber, as we'll be utilizing the existing coax lines. Converting the 4th field technician from temporary to full-time is essential to achieving these biennium goals. This additional technician will support the DOCSIS 3.1 upgrade, assist with installations, and continue the expansion of our fiber. To support this role, we will also need to purchase a new bucket truck. In parallel, we will continue deploying fiber to areas not covered by the DOCSIS 3.1 upgrade. While DOCSIS 3.1 will provide symmetrical gigabit speed, our ultimate goal remains to connect every home in Ashland with fiber. Additionally, we are planning to bring in an external company to assist with rebranding AFN to better reflect our expanded service offerings. With the rapid deployment of gigabit service and targeted marketing efforts, we anticipate having a total of 5,000 customers by the end of the biennium. $1.5 million has already been budgeted, leaving $1 million as an unfunded request. Funding for these requests will come from these sources. AFN's debt was retired this past year, freeing up about $600,000 annually. We project $373,000 surplus from the current pond pilot project, which will be carried over to the next biennium. $1.5 million has already been allocated in the 26-27 biennium. The remaining funds will come from AFN's ending fund balance. Our new projected ending fund balance is $800,000. The policy for AFN's ending fund balance is $700,000, which will be met. Compared to other municipally owned and operated broadband networks in the Pacific Northwest, our market share and staffing levels are below average. While there is sufficient work to justify more than field technicians, it is currently more financially prudent to convert the temporary field technician into a full-time position. Increasing our customer count by 14% will result in a 42% market share. Our long-term goal is to achieve a market share of 50 to 60% and higher. Our prices and speeds are generally in line with other providers. The other municipalities compete with Ziply Fiber, Comcast, and Astound Broadband. Since early 2017, AFN's customer base has steadily increased, driven by two key factors. In 2015, AFN upgraded its network, increasing plant capacity fivefold. In late 2016, AFN enhanced its marketing efforts. Over the past 8 years, our customer count has steadily increased by nearly 14%. With targeted marketing and further network upgrades, we believe we can achieve similar results in a shorter time frame. This slide shows the DOCSIS 3.1 remote PHY node. On the left side is the DOCSIS 3.1 module, which will deliver symmetrical gigabit speeds using our existing coax network infrastructure. Traditional DOCSIS 3.0, which we currently use, relies on a central CMTS router located at our head end. In contrast, DOCSIS 3.1 moves the CMTS router to the node, bringing it closer to the customer. This significantly improves reliability. The new remote PHY node also provides enhanced telemetry data, allowing us to monitor and pinpoint the source of any issues. On the right side is an optional module for the fiber PON services, which we plan to purchase at a later date. This module can provide PON internet service to over 300 customers. Because the DOCSIS 3.1 equipment is modular, it can be easily upgraded to support future fiber expansions without requiring significant capital investment. This map shows the services currently available in Ashland. Purple areas will be upgraded to DOCSIS 3.1. Orange areas are locations with existing PON fiber services. Blue areas are serviced by G.hn technology, which provides symmetrical gigabit service primarily to multi-dwelling units. Pink areas are office buildings with shared fiber services. Yellow areas will be upgraded by the end of the year with either PON or G.hn. Green areas will remain on traditional DOCSIS 3.0, but will be upgraded to PON soon. The two red polygons are where we are planning on deploying PON next. With the help of GIS, we have developed an online map where citizens can check the services available to them. That website is maps.ashlandfiber.net. I've described this biennium as AFN's moonshot. Our debt has been paid off, and we now have a proven track record of successfully delivering large-scale projects. Our staff is exceptional. After 19 years with AFN, I can confidently say we've never had a better team working together. We are the only 100% locally owned broadband network in Ashland. With these upgrades, residents will benefit from excellent customer service, affordable pricing, and fast speeds, all while supporting a local business that actively contributes to and promotes the local economy and community. Now is the time to continue to invest in AFN. And with that, are there any questions?
Councillor Bloom.
Thank you. I wanted to get in here first before our council expert on on telecommunications jumps in. No, this is great, and I think that AFN is a huge opportunity, a business opportunity, quite frankly, for the city of Ashland. And by that I mean that AFN has an opportunity to generate revenue for the city of Ashland, and with that revenue allows us to expand some of our subsidy programs for low-income residents, and so that's beneficial. I'm really impressed with the SOU numbers. I think that that's fantastic, considering that there wasn't a lot of marketing that went into it. One of the things that I'm really interested in is a couple of things. Well, one, I was surprised by Spectrum's prices for 1 gig, because I have Spectrum, and it's $123 a month. I wouldn't be opposed to us being just under that, 115, but then building in some promotional things. So just a few notes that I made here is, free install. So if you've got an apartment complex that's 5 or 10 units or more, waiving install fees to kind of help expedite that, especially if you get the apartment owners to invest in that themselves. When somebody moves in, they leave a little placard, hey, call AFN, this is already set up. So I think that could help with expansions. Referral credits, I don't know if that's something that we do already, but hey, $20 off for the next 3 months of your bill if you refer somebody else and they follow through with the commitment to connect. And then the other one is the Spectrum match guarantee. I think it'd be a really great idea. I'm sure other people do it, but one of my favorite things to do is every year to call up Spectrum and say, hey, AFN is offering me this way better deal. Do you think you can knock it down? And they do. They are on a contract and you're offering lifetime prices, but maybe that is something to look at so that we can be competitive and steal more of that market share. I think you already have really ambitious goals, but I would aim even higher. I mean, I want 70%, 80%, 85% market share in Ashland. It's good for AFN, it's good for the city. So yeah, I just wanted to get a couple of quick thoughts in there. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Hanson.
I was waiting for, sorry, yeah.
Councillor Hanson.
Sure, I'll go next with my easy question, Chad. Great presentation. Way to be under budget. Wish we could deploy a lot faster. I have a business with trucks and people too, so I understand the bottlenecks there. But clearly it's working, and hats off to you for making the presentation and staying relevant, because I mean, it's almost like we'd have to give up, if we didn't. So thank you. I don't understand, help me understand the coax tie to fiber. I didn't understand that we were going to use the existing coax network to deploy fiber. I thought the whole point was to rip that stuff out and put in fiber.
So the DOCSIS 3.1
Yes, thank you.
Upgrade does fully utilize coax. So it is an entire 100% coax network infrastructure. But this is a stopgap measure to quickly deploy gigabit services to 53% of Ashland. So the timeline for doing the same with fiber services, we'd be looking at maybe 5 to 6 years. And we'd probably be looking at least like $6 to $8 million. So the DOCSIS 3.1 is just a really quick way for us to beef up our customer numbers or increase our take rates, and to also just get our name out there. So we're going to do a marketing blitz. Hey, AFN is here. We're providing gigabit speed. Fiber is coming to your location soon. And also the DOCSIS 3.1 nodes. They're not just coax nodes, so we can upgrade those with fiber services at a future date. So this isn't money that we're just throwing away. This is equipment that can be upgraded. So we can run DOCSIS 3.1 and fiber concurrently.
Okay. So is this a new development that wasn't available a year ago when we launched the pilot program to go fiber end to end?
Remote PHY has been around for a while, but it's really starting to mature as an option. In fact, I went to a broadband conference earlier this year, and Spectrum is just starting to roll out this remote PHY equipment as well. So the same equipment we're looking at, they are slowly beginning to upgrade their entire plants across the United States with the same very equipment.
Okay. So again, was this not available a year ago, and it's just a new thing that we're
It was available, but it's really hit a maturity level that I feel confident that our
Okay.
network, that it's viable as an option for our consumers.
Okay, so bottom line for those of us that aren't new construction, that have coax, when we upgrade for faster speeds, we'll be getting this new coax equipment. We won't be buying the fiber end to end.
Correct. But during this time frame, especially during the next biennium, we are still rolling out fiber because fiber is the answer.
Yeah.
Fiber is the forever. DOCSIS 3.1 is just a stopgap until we can deploy fiber.
Okay. Well, that's all good to hear, and I'm excited for my coax again. So that's cool.
And also,
At the end of the day, I just want the speeds. I don't really care.
and also the cost for this DOCSIS 3.1, we're looking at 1.75 million to deploy this, and so that's a lot of money to be asking for. And so 2 years ago, I wasn't comfortable asking for that much money, and so now that we've spent $600,000, we have deployed fiber. We have some preliminary numbers. These numbers look wonderful. Now I feel confident presenting to you guys the numbers and asking for additional funds.
Okay. Yeah, and if I'm doing basic math right, you almost saved 40% on your estimated budget. So good job. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I can also add to that, when Chad and I met on this a few months ago, we looked at how quickly can we also bring revenue in, in conjunction with going after both avenues, the DOCSIS 3.1. And this method does that. Where if we start with a big marketing push now in these areas, we can start bringing that revenue in and not, it would just be from a cash flow perspective, more advantageous.
Okay, great.
Councilor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Chad, appreciate it, and I certainly appreciate all the excellent work with the team, and it's just awesome to see this stuff. In deference to not boring my colleagues, we'll take the tech stuff online because I've been doing it for 10 hours today, and so I'm gonna chat with Mary Ann if that's okay. So I'm interested relative to this that this is all great stuff, totally understand the tech side of everything. What I'm interested in, though, is the financials behind this. Is like, I would think that we would need to make sure that this is cash flow positive, that it's doing stuff. We certainly have to look at it. Now, I believe, Mary Ann, as I was looking through the OpenGov, that we started instituting a franchise fee. It looked like it was 4% last year, and it looks like it's budgeted for 8% franchise.
7.
7? Okay. Okay. But in addition to that, because this is kind of completely self-contained as an enterprise fund, really.
Correct.
Yeah. So where does in addition to franchise fee, it looks like it'll generate somewhere around 500,000, looks like, as what's budgeted for the franchise fees. Yeah, something like that, yeah. Where other places of, and I hesitate to use this word, but call it profit, call it something that like, this is a value add. We're providing services to our citizens, to their customers, and the city gets an advantage from doing this. So like I noticed there was an internal service charge for administrative fee. Are there any other things outside of franchise fee where we'll call it the city benefits from running this enterprise?
At the moment, it's franchise fees and the internal service charges.
Right.
So I think at this point, with what Chad has, great expertly put together in terms of what everything costs, the ask is to do an additional $2.5 million in capital project costs, which will bring down the ending fund balance to approximately $800,000. So at that point, we really want to see where the revenues are going to come in, in the next year or two. On that as well, we can be nimble in how we expend the the effort of, the capital expenditures, depending on where we start to see how the take rate comes in. We believe, Chad truly believes, that we're, with a target market push, we should be able to see that come in the next year or two. From that perspective, then we'll be able to ascertain what else can we do with AFN as an enterprise. But for now, to your question, we're only looking at franchise fees and the internal service charges. And we only used 7% because I believe that was the industry standard, so.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, that's all great. And I appreciate the fact that the budgeting comes from inside the ending fund balance, so it's not coming from other parts of the city,
That's right.
which is all kind of self-contained, and that's what we want to do, is we want to invest that, we want to put it back in. And I think what would be interesting, though, is I think the next step, if I were to provide kind of feedback, I would say, is that we would need to see some sort of kind of like a business plan, business model. What are your financials? What's your return? What's our MOIC? Things like that. All the fun stuff that techs we don't like to do, but
Yes.
but are critical just to make sure that what we're doing is that we are aiming towards something, and we know what we're doing.
So I had a draft slide prepared, but decided not to present it because I wanted to see where the conversation went. And if that is the desire, we can definitely come back with that.
Thank you.
Councillor Kaplan.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Mary Ann and Chad. This is exciting, and it's great to see see progress on this pilot program. I'm a little puzzled about this 60% because it's 60% spent, but we didn't actually get finished. The pilot project is not finished, right? You didn't get all of the 500 household connections that you expected over the pilot period. So there's still some work to do to complete the pilot project, and how much is that going to cost of the $1 million?
So we have enough equipment to 100% complete the Granite Street. And we are planning on deploying PON to another 2 areas in town, which will be another 500 customers or another 500 homes passed. And we have most of the equipment necessary for those 2 additional areas. So all of the big ticket items, the big remote OLTs that cost, $60,000, we've already purchased those. And so we just have a little bit of fiber supplies to purchase, but those are all low dollar amounts.
Okay. Thanks for that, because I was a little puzzled to see, is it really, did we have savings, or did we just not finish the project? I have questions more like in line with Councillor Dale's about this as a business. And I see the revenues over the last couple of years have been, they've been pretty flat. We've had pretty good increase in coverage, as you showed in your graph, but the revenues don't track that. So I'm a little worried about it, the same sort of thing. Where are we going in the future? Are the revenues going to generate enough excess revenue in order to be able to come back and pay for the heavier investment that's going to be necessary for fiber? You said that what is it called? DOCSIS 3.1 is a stopgap. We're going to spend $1.75 million on that, but that's only for some time while we prepare to do to cover the much heavier cost for fiber. We're still going to have to do that, and there's not going to be any fund balance unless we have extra revenues, unless we really jack up the revenues over expenses over this next few years. So I don't see how the project finance works out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
and maybe
you.
you do need to put up that slide.
Yes, that was my part of the conversation in this whole endeavor. And first, I will say that in the last several years before 2023, there was no construction. We weren't doing what the pilot program only started in 2024. So really, since then, we added 250 customers, actually added customers. And I want to delineate between the difference between adding actual customers, paying revenue versus passing homes, which is also part of the metrics here that has been shared. So part of the PON pilot goals was to pass 500 homes a year. We've done that. And without much marketing, added 250 customers on on top of that. So we believe, and going back to Councilor Hanson's question, running parallel between doing the pond pilot, the additional pond pilot, we're going to continue to lay fiber and also do DOCSIS 3.1 with the intent that it will also continue to bring revenue in. And the thought is we should be able to bring 750 new customers this biennium. And when we come back, we'll go over the financials with you. The thought is that it'll probably take a few bienniums to get to a recouping of the capital costs that we're laying today. But with a strong effort this biennium to start to recapture that in client revenue, customer revenue.
So, just to follow up, thank
Yeah.
you. So a few biennia to recoup the 1.75. But
Well-
what I heard Chad you say is that fiber is going to cost 5 to 8, or I can't remember the number, something like 6 to, maybe you said 6 to 8. So when would we? So recouping the 1.75 doesn't really get us very far along to the 6 to 8. Are we going to? Is the plan to borrow for that? What's the? I
So-
guess I don't see the financial way forward. So I guess that, yeah.
So, Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have the equipment, the inventory to continue to do the PON fiber rollout, and the map that he had shown was reflective of where we are going to be this biennium. And between that and the DOCSIS 3.1, we will continue to build the customer base to what we believe is 60% after, and I hesitate to put the anchor down, but I'm going to say, 3 bienniums, 3 or 4 bienniums, maybe 3, but I'd like to come back with that.
And yeah, to your point, fiber is definitely the goal. Like I keep saying, fiber is forever. Fiber is going to take a long time to deploy. We're talking about a 10-year time span. But these remote PHY nodes that we are deploying, the cost to upgrade them for fiber services is significantly small. We're talking about like $14,000 or less. And so we can upgrade these nodes at half the cost of what we're buying our existing remote OLTs for. And so we're really going to be hitting this from multiple sides. Yeah.
And Chad, please add to it. My tech is not nearly as good as yours, clearly. But it also is very specific to the location of where you're throwing out that DOCSIS 3.1, right? So that particular element is, the parameter of it is limited.
Correct, right. So these will be done on a node-by-node basis. So, right, we'll upgrade one node at a time to DOCSIS 3.1, and then we'll, over time, upgrade it to PON. And that's also why, this is our moonshot. Our number one reason why customers don't go with us is we love supporting local. We love that the city of Ashland has its own fiber network, but we need faster speeds. And so this is it. We're delivering gigabit symmetrical. Spectrum can't do this.
That's right.
We will be the only person in town, only game in town able to provide this level of service to, a wide area.
60%.
60% of Ashland and growing.
Right. And then I will also just mention that in the miscellaneous fees book that we brought to you a couple weeks ago, in there we inserted a discount rate for a promotional program that we hope to push out in the next few months.
Councilor Bloom.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, I think that, or I guess to summarize it in a way, what we're talking about is this, investment, $2.5 million. Let's get this, the system in place, the infrastructure in place, so that down the road, as we expand our customer base, build up the reserves, we can then make that long-term
Yes.
investment or 10-year plan into fiber. I think, I mean, to me, that makes sense. I'm curious, real quick, just a couple quick questions. The ARPU, what is the average ARPU for say Spectrum?
I doubt that they publish that number.
Okay.
I'm very curious about that as well.
Right, but the goal is to get up above the 48 points. I mean, we trying to get to
Correct.
52, it seems like, or higher.
I would be happy in between $50 and $55. And ARPU it's challenging because we definitely want to increase our ARPU, but we also want to make AFN affordable. We want AFN to be affordable for all. And so that's why we have these things with like the Internet Assistance Program. But
Yeah,
still,
n-
the fact
no.
remains, we definitely need to increase that ARPU.
Totally, and I mean, I think that's always the challenge: is how do we balance this thing? We want to get the ARPU up. We want to build reserves so that we can increasingly get to that point where we're putting in the long-term infrastructure, but also the benefit of that, and certainly how we do our rates and how we tier those and expanding customers, that is more money that can go into assistance programs. And maybe it is changing what that assistance program looks like, maybe bumping it from 25 to 27, gets us closer to that higher ARPU. I'd be curious to see how that models out. And then real quick, it was kind of to my first point, I completely spaced on it, in terms of marketing. One of the things that Spectrum is able to do is bundling, right? Whether it's your phone or it's TV. I'm curious if there's been any interest or if you'd be willing to look into talking with Google and YouTube TV and finding out if there's a way and if it makes sense cost-wise to bundle or offer bundle packages. So that way we're offering a little bit more to the customers than just internet. So something I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on. And then last point is, for me, for all the people that I know and students that are at universities and certainly people with families and streaming, 1 gig is the minimum. I mean, at least for me. And if you were able to offer consistent quality 1 gig, I'd be switching to AFN in a heartbeat. And it's the only thing kind of keeping me from doing it and from my peers. And so I see this as critical to be able to get to that.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Chad, could you, who's ever driving, can throw up the slide of the map, please? There you go, perfect. So, thank you for talking through the financials, so forth. I guess the flip side of this and where I see kind of a really significant concern is everything in green is the DOCSIS 3.0, which is not upgraded. And that is basically flat our CBD with the exception of a little bit downtown. It's the entire side of South Ashland where all businesses would be. You've got some, high school, we're missing it there, that I can tell there. We touched briefly on this as kind of a pilot project when we talked 2 years ago. I mean, we're going all the way up Granite Street, which is all residential. Councilor Bloom had talked about promotions and this and, comparing bills. And, in my line of work, we call it commoditized bandwidth. It's a race to zero. You just can't win in residential a lot of times. We're lucky that we have a limited competitive base here. Spectrum does TV and cable and other things because they can offset the cost to kind of bury competitors relative to kind of lowballing. So I'm really interested in, along with the financials, of doing some sort of economic development, feasibility analysis, some sort of business development that says 1 gig is absolutely, I mean, that's table stakes, right? But we're trying to attract businesses. We're trying to build, a business class network where people will come into town and build their businesses. We need to, I think, really put some serious urgency on figuring out how we leverage, and you're going to fight a losing battle trying to just go with trying to fight the residential battle. You and I both know that. So we have to figure out how to have that value add of enterprise level services that aren't commoditized. We have to run promotion after promotion after promotion. That needs to be a critical part of capital moving forward to be able to see what we can do, because that's going to be the make or break, in my opinion.
So the south section of town, that's an excellent point. So the area along Ashland Street we are very fiber rich in that area. So it was going to be incredibly easy for us to upgrade the area along Ashland Street to fiber for pond services. So the reason why we chose the purple areas is because those are all on the outskirts. And so those are the areas that are more difficult to upgrade with fiber. We don't necessarily we're not very fiber deep in those neighborhoods. So upgrading to DOCSIS 3.1 makes the most sense. And we're still focusing on businesses like the area all around Washington and Jefferson, that's a 100% PON. And we're also building out fiber as fast as we can in downtown Ashland. I mentioned that we lit up 2 blocks so far this year, and it is still our goal to have every single block in downtown Ashland to be able to obtain gigabit services by the end of the year. So absolutely, businesses, we're still focusing on business. And when I was here 2 years ago, you told me focus on the south side of Ashland, and I took that to heart. That's why I specifically did the Washington Jefferson. And we're not going to stop there. We are definitely focusing on businesses.
Well, and I appreciate that. And just to tie it into the first presentation relative to communication, I mean, this is something that we need to continue. I look forward to seeing it in the business development feasibility analysis and the strategic plan.
Right. Yeah. And also this marketing push, we also need to reach businesses better. We've got this phenomenal network in downtown Ashland. We're rock solid, but how many businesses know about us? I can't go out and knock on every door, and that's why we need this targeting advertisement. And
Councillor Kaplan.
Yeah, just a clarification, really on the same map. But what I understood you to say, Chad, and thanks for that clarification. What I understood you to say before when you presented this map is that those 2 blocks that are outlined in red, that's the next pond area? Is that
very, very tentative right now, but those are potentially the 2 areas that we're looking at.
So my understanding that it's in green, I think what I understood in layman's terms, that it's in green because those are the things that you're going to go from what they currently have, which is DOCSIS 3.0 to PON, and it's just a matter of, how quickly you can do that. Whereas the purple areas, it's not going to be PON until, the next three biennia from now.
Correct. You're absolutely correct. I mean, the purple areas will receive gigabit speed, ideally before the end of the year. That's our time frame. And their fiber upgrade is going to happen at a much slower rate than the green areas.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. So what is the limiting factor with the speed of deploying PON?
So the construction, it takes a lot of time and money to deploy fiber because we have to string up new fiber, we have to splice, we have to install new drop cables.
So it's people?
Exactly.
It's staff.
And so on one of the previous slides where I compared the other municipalities with fiber networks in the Pacific Northwest, one of them had a construction crew of 11. And while I would love to come with, to ask City Council, hey, can I hire 11 field techs? It's just not economically viable to do so. So I believe that with a 4th field tech over the next biennium, that's the sweet spot for us. And then moving forward in additional bienniums, I may ask for field techs that are dedicated to doing installations only, just to splinter apart those roles. So maybe we can hire a lower end field tech who just does installs, which would greatly help us out.
So I guess one of my questions comes back to the comments that Councillor Dale was making in terms of the economic development reality of the map, right? And seeing that our economic center core is, from my limited technical understanding, is in a place where it's got older equipment. And it is lined up, it's not even yet in the future in the yellow, right? But over some period of time, that's going to happen. And I wonder, to what extent is the speed or the timing of that going to negatively impact our business development in those areas? And it strikes me, I know one of the big conversations that is in the larger world right now is essentially the pulling back of the bipartisan infrastructure law funding, and there were $60 billion or something like that in fiber that was being deployed. And so I know we've had trouble bringing staff members on in the past. That may not be the case as projects get canceled in different places. And so I'm just wondering, that's the reason for the question around the bottleneck is there an economic development reason for us to move this faster? And if that's the case, is there a way to make a financing model that makes sense?
I would say that in our discussions, part of that, the part of the response was to run parallel an implementation of DOCSIS 3.1. And I asked Chad right now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but can we light up some of the green areas with 3.1?
Oh, absolutely. So this 1.75 million out of the 2.5 million, that's to light up 20 nodes with DOCSIS 3.1.
What does 20 nodes mean for me?
20 neighborhoods.
Okay.
So there's 38 neighborhoods total. And so we're going to be upgrading 20 of those neighborhoods to support gigabit speed. I also plan this budget around a lot of uncertainty with tariffs, with supply chain issues, you name it. So far, my supplier says that prices are remaining steady. So there's also a chance that by December, we might be able to light up 25 nodes or, and so these DOCSIS 3.1 node upgrades can occur at any time. So in 28-29 biennium, we could potentially deploy, convert more nodes over to DOCSIS 3.1 as well.
But it's my understanding, so when I look at the purple here, and it's a DOCSIS 3.1 upgrade, those are areas that have already been upgraded.
They will be upgraded by the end of the year. Those are all
Okay,
those
so
purple
by the
areas.
end of this year, that's how that's going to look. The green, and correct me if this is not accurate, the green areas are the areas that are going to go directly from DOCSIS 3.0 to fiber, to PON.
That is correct.
They're not going to take that intermediate step of DOCSIS 3.1.
That is correct, but I will also say that while that's the plan, we may have extra funding left over where we will be able to upgrade some of those green areas. And in a future biennium, we may also upgrade those to DOCSIS 3.1 as well.
So I guess I come back to the question around residential versus commercial in terms of, a lot of what we talk about here and what's in the packet is the secondary benefits of certain types of investments in AFN. And so if one of those secondary benefits is the ability for businesses to come here or to start here in a different way than they can now, I wonder about that prioritization of these outer lying neighborhoods over the central business core.
So the central business core, like I brought up Ashland Street, that is incredibly easy to upgrade with PON. So I wouldn't necessarily want to waste a DOCSIS 3.1 node upgrade on something that we can easily and quickly deploy PON services to.
But what is the timing? What are we anticipating that upgrade to be?
We don't have it on our roadmap quite yet, but as soon as I'm focusing on businesses as fast as I can. And so primarily my focus is on downtown Ashland, to make sure that the downtown corridor has access to fast, reliable gigabit services. And then from there, we're branching out where we can, like to Washington Street and Jefferson.
Okay, great. So in terms of the direction from staff this evening, if we can go back to the budget slide. There. The request to appropriate, that's in our current budget that is coming back to the council?
It's not.
$1 million is not. $1.5 million is.
Right.
So,
And so by this slide, what we're looking at is that this is the request to appropriate is from the existing fiscal year that we are in currently, or?
From the ending fund balance. So
Yeah,
we
from the
wanna-
ending fund balance before we roll into the next budget?
Yeah, so staff's ask is to go ahead and, from the ending fund balance, take this funding, right? And
Well, yeah, so appropriated into the 25-27 biennium. So right now, we did not appropriate it into the new biennium budget.
Right, because we were running a pilot and we wanted to come back and have this conversation before
right.
making any further investment.
correct.
Great. So questions, Councillor Dale?
About that, thank you. So just so I'm clear, though, that will be then, if council chooses not to appropriate at this time, that would just be sitting in the ending fund balance,
That's
correct?
correct.
Okay, so it would be reasonable to say that we could do a little bit more homework and we don't have to worry about it
That's
right now
correct.
because you still are running under budget, thank you, for what you're currently doing, correct?
That's
Okay,
correct.
Thanks.
Councillor Hanson?
I just looked up on our chamber website. It says that we have 1,200 businesses in town. It says the number of firms, 1,200 businesses, and then the utility counts we talked about in the CBC meetings. I think wasn't it like 11,000?
12,500.
12,000. Yeah. So my questions really are along those lines. And in terms of your business model, are you looking with that marketing spend? Are you looking to target those 1,200 businesses sooner rather than later, or the residential market? And I think that dovetails into how the appropriation goes.
Yeah, with our marketing push, yeah, we're definitely going to be targeting the businesses as well as the residential. So it's going to be a two-tiered approach.
Because I think from the investment standpoint, we're probably going to have a bigger bang for our buck with the business market. Are you prioritizing one over the other?
At this point, it's undecided.
Okay.
And so a lot of this is, the outside consultant, the marketing firm we're going to hire, will be doing a study and telling us, why aren't people going with AFN? How can we better reach businesses and residential and how to market to those? And so we'll be doing both at the same time.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, just trying to get my head around this.
Sabrina?
I think just a point of clarification, while, fast speed is important for business, the volume is in the residential in terms of customers, correct, Chad?
Correct.
And so solely focusing on business is not really good for AFN's bottom line. There must be a balance between both residential and commercial to ensure that we continue to bring in the revenue to be able to expand the service. So while we want to, of course, have good infrastructure for business, and it is a driver for bringing business here, we have to balance that with residential, because you all know we have 5 streaming services, right? Each of us. So we all need that.
So in terms of direction to staff this evening, it seems that we've had a couple of suggestions from the council, and also we have this question of the request to appropriate. And so what you would need from us this evening is council supportive of you coming back forward with a formal request to appropriate in a business meeting? And alongside that, we had two conversations, one about presenting more of a business model, coming back with more details around that business model. And I had seen quite a few head nods around that. And then certainly looking at how does that connect in with our economic development goals in terms of supporting small businesses? Kind of looking at those two things together. Is that correct? And it seems to me that at this point, the council could provide this direction. The appropriation can move in if they choose to do that. The appropriation can move forward, and then action can kind of be held a little bit. Not the things that you're already planning, but in terms of the future, refining the future questions that could come in the conversation that comes back with the deeper business model process. Does that sound? Is that accurate in terms of what can and can't happen?
Yes, that's accurate. So what I'm hearing is we need a better business plan to prove our forecasting and where we're going, both on residential and commercial. But we also want to keep the ball rolling with the deployment, because the faster we can get faster speeds out there, the more likely we are to pull customers. And so we would like to travel down both lanes at the same time at top speed if we could.
Okay. So,
Light.
So what I'd like to do is just have each counselor comment on, or give me a head nod if this looks right. Let's see if we can get there. That the direction would be for staff to continue with the current deployment of the project that you have laid out and you've discussed with us today. That staff bring forward to us a request to appropriate this additional $1 million from the ending fund balance into the next year's biennial budget. And then alongside that staff also come back forward to us with a more refined business plan that also touches in at the nexus with our local business community. Does that sound right? And floor is open for any other comments. Councilor Dale.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, that sounds, what I would say is, the order to me, I guess, would say matters. I would need to see that business plan because to your point about residential, those are two different lanes. There is what are we doing with business and economic development. Residential is certain there. I get a little nervous just worrying about customer volume. It's really about, we'll call it margin. Again, you can have a bunch of customers and it could be net zero basically. You have to kind of, that's why you need that feasibility, that analysis, the business plan basically to say if we're going to be investing in this. I'm a little worried about investing in copper-based stuff too. When, like you said, fiber is where it's at, right? I worry that we will potentially unwittingly put money into something that will just not generate the return without, I couldn't make an educated analysis about whether to appropriate this money until seeing those plans for both residential and commercial.
Go ahead, Mary Ann.
I just wanted to ask, do you want to see this in a study session or a regular meeting? Is it more discussion around?
Probably, I would say another study session with the business model. And a question in terms of the budget process, if we're looking to roll over ending fund balance, that would need to be done now, correct?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
No. Yeah, we can appropriate it after the budget is adopted.
So we could do that as a budget adjustment later.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
already- I mean, isn't it already in? It's already
A
rolling
million
forward.
and a half is in
Million and a half
capital
is, but
right
not
now.
the other
but
million.
An additional million to,
Well, but it's just sitting in the fund, so.
yes.
yeah, so
But it's not appropriated.
It's not
though. We
appropriated.
would have to appropriate it, yeah.
Right. So I think that what I'm hearing from Councilor Dale, and I'm seeing some other head nods, is that the council is interested in really seeing that plan and acknowledging and approving that to go forward before putting additional funding into the appropriating additional ending fund balance. Is that what I'm hearing? Does that create any particular timing issues for all of you? I'm not thinking it does, but just wanted to find out.
Operationally, no.
Operationally?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Does that sound right then? That we will hold off on any appropriation direction? We'll wait to get the business model information that links to the economic development aspect, and in the meantime, carrying on with the great work that you guys have already been doing.
Thank you.
That looks right? Okay, great. Thank you so
Thanks,
much. And it's
Chad.
great to see the great progress that we're making. It's fantastic.
Thank
It's
you.
a real asset for our community. All right. Thank you very much. And we move on to our third and final agenda item this evening, which is the council vacancy appointment options.
All right, so Councilors Bloom and Kaplan have evaluated the exhaustive ballot method as well as the small group ranked choice voting method to provide two very complicated options for you for picking your city councilor to fill the vacant seat. So we need to do that tomorrow and to ensure that we meet our timeline. So what I need from you tonight is to pick one of those methods so that staff can be prepared to hold that process.
So if either one of you would like to start us off, that's great. Councilor Bloom?
Yes, I'll start off by saying I just noticed that we have estimated times on all these items, so let's see if we can actually keep this to 20 minutes.
And just to that point, we were actually supposed to at 7:30 have adjourned unless the majority voted to extend it 30 minutes, but that's
Gone and passed.
gone and passed. That's part of the reason for those time estimates, but you guys can go ahead and vote to extend the meeting I don't know if this will take all that much longer, but technically it was only supposed to extend 30 minutes.
Okay, I'm happy to move that we extend 30 minutes.
We're able to make a motion to do that in a study session?
Majority can extend it by 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
But it was from 7, but we're learning. We're getting there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, cool. Bob and I kind of got together. We went back and forth, and we have two different ideas of how this goes about. I guess I'll go first since it's listed as option 1 here. So what I'm proposing is kind of an exhaustive ballot method, but there's a bit of a hybrid system of instant runoff in certain situations with ties. So essentially how this would work is each counselor would vote for one applicant. Votes are then tallied aloud by the city recorder. If any applicant receives 3 or more votes, they are immediately appointed. If no one receives 3 votes, we proceed to candidate elimination. To keep it brief, you will see in your packet, I've gamed out a variety of different scenarios that could play out if it isn't 3-2 right away, and what those scenarios would look like. Scenario A, as you can see, is everybody votes for a different candidate and how we would go about it. One option is we could do the step A1, which is just a revote, or we could just skip straight to A2. In that case, each counselor would submit a second choice ranking. The first and second choice votes are combined. And then naturally, if applicant X is ranked first once and second twice, they receive 3 points, so on and so forth. Very unlikely that scenario will happen. What is more likely is that you're going to have a scenario B, which is one applicant gets 2 votes, and then 3 others get 1 vote. And that's pretty straightforward and easy how we go about doing that. So the 2-vote applicant would automatically advance to the next round. You'd have a runoff between the 1-vote candidates. And in that scenario, you'd come out with a 2-2 or a 2-2-1. Very easy. You eliminate, you move on. The reason why I've put this method forward and why I've struggled with the alternative is that I personally am not comfortable with us ranking, sending off over to a corner, people doing math to find an average, and then a winner is just kind of announced, and that's who it is. I think that it's better for the public and for the candidates that will be in the audience or at home watching to see how that plays out, to see that the process is very transparent, and to understand how we are going about doing that vote. And so, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think it's very simple, and there's a solution to any possible scenario of any kind of vote split that could happen. And happy to answer any questions if people have any.
Should we just
So
do the
let's-
second one first?
Let's take any questions on this one because there's complex issues. Okay, if there are no questions, go ahead, Councillor Kaplan.
So the second one, I agree with Dylan, with Councillor Bloom, that we don't want somebody going off into the corner. That's not what the proposal is for either case. That it would be done in open session. It would be tallied. We'd be actually seeing it up on the screen exactly what's happening. Because I think mostly it's absolutely critical that this is a transparent process. The second one, which is ranked choice voting, that's measure 117. In Oregon was for ranked choice voting. It failed in the state and it failed in Jackson County, but over 70% of Ashland voters voted yes. That's 8,860 votes compared with between 6,000 and 7,000 for each of the 3 council seats. So more people in Ashland voted for ranked choice voting than voted for any of our councilors or our mayor in the last election. Doesn't mean that we have to do that, but I just thought that's interesting. Last time we selected 2 councilors, which were Councilor Dale and Councilor Bloom. Although we thought we were going to go follow a ranked choice voting process, Joe Lassard essentially used the exhaustive ballot measure method that Dylan has laid out. He had us fill out rankings in a ballot as if we were going to be ranked choice voting, but then he had us vote and vote and vote until we eliminated each of the candidates. So that's not really the way ranked choice voting is supposed to work. What we're supposed to do, as is laid out in the paper, is fill out a complete ranking of all 8 candidates just once, and then the city recorder applies a clear set of rules that are laid out in the paper to reallocate votes from the less favored candidate towards the more favored candidate. There are really only 4 possible outcomes with 5 votes. There's 1 candidate wins outright with either 3, 4, or 5 votes. So that's simple. And I think that's the case for either method. A second possibility is that there's 2, 2, and 1. So that's decided. So two candidates get 2 votes. and one candidate gets one vote. So that's a very simple application of ranked choice voting as well, because the next ranked candidate of the counselor who voted for the candidate with one single vote breaks the tie, because it gets reallocated. It's very, very straightforward. Then there's there are two other possibilities: is the one candidate gets two votes, and three candidates get one vote each. And Dylan talked about that. And then the other one is 5 different candidates get one vote each. In each case, there's going to need to be a reallocation from the candidates that have just one vote to the candidates that have 2 votes. Or in the case of the candidates that when there's one for each one, then you just reallocate based on the lowest average score. And it's a very straightforward process. There's a slight possibility of a tie, and that's troublesome. But there's less of a possibility of a tie with using the average ranking as the method for reallocation than using just the straight ranked choice voting method. But if there is a tie, then the way to break the tie is going to have to be some randomized method like a coin toss. In my mind, that's worrisome, but it's less worrisome than if the coin toss were to decide a winner. In fact, the coin toss decides who gets eliminated, not who wins the whole thing. Because once you get past all of that, you have a clear reallocation based on the preferences. So I think there are 2 possible methods. I think either one can work. I think, there's complexity, as Sabrina said, with applying either one of them. I think we can make it more complex than it really is, but it's really, I think it's really, we could go either way, and I'm happy to answer any questions on this one as well.
So I have a question, Councillor Kaplan. When you look at this, the low likelihood of a tie where they've got the same average score, it would also be possible to simply do a runoff vote between those 2, right?
Yep.
So that it's not a flip of a coin. It's just we have a dead heat.
That's true.
There's 2. There's 5 people voting. You're going to end up with a winner. That person advances,
That's
and then
true.
you don't have to have that randomized element.
That's
You sort of move them in like they're kind of like a championship tournament
That's right.
bracket, right?
That's true.
Just a little bit more work to come in from the other side.
So in a sense, that's a hybrid of ranked choice and exhaustive ballot method.
Yeah, just in that very, very low likelihood that you actually end up with a straight dead heat tie
Right.
for one position.
Another difference between the 2 methods is one method, the ranked choice, has us ranking all 8 candidates in, we have to make sure that we rank all of them. And that may be more difficult than finding a single, winner. So that's another thing to take into account.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, what I'd like to do is go around and just find out from individual counselors if they are at this moment preferring option 1, which was presented by Councillor Bloom, or option 2, which was presented by Councillor Kaplan. Go ahead, Councillor Duquesne.
Thank you, Mayor. And I thank my colleagues for looking into this and bringing this to council. I agree with Councillor Kaplan. Rank voting was voted in. I look at this as an appointment by 5 councilors, and I would go for option 1. Keep it simple, keep it transparent, and we'll just get it done.
So option 1,
Yes.
the one that Councillor Bloom put
Yes.
forward. Okay. All right. Councillor Dale?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I do appreciate both of you doing all the hard work. It is something that I appreciate as well, that people voted for this, although we're fortunate enough to have an odd number of voting members here, and I just don't feel comfortable ranking all 8 when we're looking for one position with an odd number of counselors, small group, that it just seems easy and transparent. I would prefer option 1.
Councillor Hanson?
On the front end, the 2 big differences here are with option 1, we'd be coming in with our top choice, and we would lead with that. And with the second option, we'd be coming in with our 8 candidates ranked, and the simplicity or not simplicity doesn't really affect my decision making here. But I do like the us leading with our strongest candidate first. I think that there might be some stickiness in the ranking all 8 candidates, because I'm really grateful for all the candidates, and I think they all have an extremely upside to them, and I would be less inclined to go with the second option for fear that just feelings might get bruised. That's all. Thank you.
So we have it will be option 1 then. And what I would encourage counselors to do, though, is to make sure that you do have your own internal ranking, because if there ends up being multiple rounds of voting, you're going to want to know from your previous analysis which way you want to go. So do you have everything that you need, Sabrina, to make this happen? Okay, great. Well, then that concludes the business for the evening. Counselor Hanson?
Just curious, so we do our internal rankings, and I read through the scenario packet, but what is the likelihood of our third pick? I mean, should we really be seriously considering our top 3, or really just considering our top 2?
Well,
you know the scenarios
I
better.
think, yeah. So essentially, you're really looking at your top 2. The 3 is not going to come into play given the number of counselors that are here.
There's 5
so what's going to
people.
happen is the most likely scenario is that 2 counselors are going to vote for 1 candidate, and then others might vote for one other. But then once you do that kind of second round with the 3 1-vote people, you're going to have a 2 and a 1. And so that person drops off and it just moves on. You're really only going to need 2 choices. Does it hurt to have 3? No, but in the back of your mind, but 2 is the most important.
So
we'll
here's-
real quick, and we'll see after a first round, let's say somebody doesn't have 3 votes, you'll know who's then left over and, moving on to the next round. And it's pretty easy to then say, okay, of that group, who would I pick next?
Well, and that's what I'm thinking, is that there is a potential, say a counselor voted for their favorite, their top choice, and there were 2 and 2, the rest of the council split 2 and 2, and that counselor has to go and choose between those 2,
Yeah.
and those 2 could be anywhere along that line. So I would encourage you to at least go down, rank as deep as you would like to go, but I would do it at least, I'd actually rank the whole 8, just so that you know in that moment which, there's a small potential, I think, but it is there, and we're going to need to move this through expeditiously. There isn't going to be time to be thinking in terms of that. You need to know which candidates you prefer ahead of time. Okay, great. All right, meeting is adjourned.